Good afternoon. How are we? Welcome along. It is time for another inspirational conversation, motivational characters from the world of music. Today, I am talking to a gentleman that I've known for easily over 25, 26 years. We're going to try and pinpoint exactly when our paths crossed, but there's been a lot that's gone on since those early days. So I'm going to say good afternoon and welcome along to Mr. Justin Wilkes. How are you, sir? You okay?
Hey, Andy. Really good to see you. It's been a long time.
A very long time. As I begin, I am always very tentative, and I'll repeat the same introduction every day because it is quite important for me to make sure that all of my screens are working. We are live on YouTube. We're also actually live right now on Facebook, and I'm going to kill the stream on Facebook very soon. So hopefully people will come over and join us on YouTube. We're going to be talking to one of the earliest radio partners for myself back on Choice FM days, and we're going to be talking about some of the amazing things that he's achieved since then. I can see Big Man Boy is on YouTube. He says, big up Andy, big up Justin. So I do know we are live and I can see that everything is working. Throughout the course of the conversation, Justin, I will draw reference to the people who are asking any questions or commenting. And when there's a break in the chat, maybe I'll say hi to them as well. So Taz is saying, good evening. Long time no see. How are you, brother? Also, shouts to Raj. Thank you for your views recently and all your comments. It is appreciated. Right, Justin, I'm all yours. Forgive me. We have to get the intros out of the way, right?
We're off.
So let me just start by saying you're putting me to shame with the quality of your microphone. It sounds absolutely mint, right? And the setup
I kind of
there,
get a little bit geeky about this.
yeah, and we'll get to understand why. So over the course of this conversation, we're going to talk about how you got into the music game. We want to find out about life before you were heavily immersed in the music game. We want to talk about your early days in Birmingham. And then we want to talk about how you managed to escape the second city and go on to do some quite monumentous things, really, in the world of broadcasting. You're a very humble guy and down to earth, so I'm going to do my best to coax some of the big achievements out of you, and anything else that in between, right? That going to work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. And I got a smile on my face because I can see Simon Schoolboy Phillips is here and he says, hey, reunion. That's right. Yeah. Big up. Okay, so let's just get straight into this. And I'll say again, people on Facebook, I'm going to kill the stream now. I just wanted you to be aware of what was going on. Come over and join us at youtube.com/DJ Andy Ward. Okay, so I've killed Facebook. We are now still on YouTube. Tell me, sir, I know I've got a few years on you, but I can't remember. Have you hit 50 yet?
No, not quite.
Okay. So when were you born?
I'm heading in the right direction, 1977.
Okay. Oh, actually, so no, you still got a fair few years yet. Closer to 45 than you are to 50. Wow, young boy. Okay. And
yeah, born in Birmingham.
What part of Birmingham?
In the QE. And yeah, my 3-4 generations of my family all lived in Aston. Mom then lived in Heights Heath. Dad was in Withall, and I lived in Redditch to start with until I was about, I would have been second year junior, whatever the equivalent of that is these days. Year 4, is it?
I ain't got the fattest idea. It always confuses me when people talk about years.
Yeah, so and then we moved to Solihull after that.
Mm-hmm. I knew I had Solihull in the back of my mind.
And I was there until I moved to London. So,
Okay, so life in Birmingham in the beginning of the 80s, you would have been just a little too young to enjoy breakdancing down the local shopping centre on the Lino. So, what are your earliest memories of like 10, 11?
Yeah. Oh no, my earliest memories of music go way before that. I think I was probably 5, and my mum and dad didn't have radios in their car at that point. But we used to lift share to school with a neighbour, and they had a bright orange Mark II Ford Escort, and it had a tape deck. And my mate's parents were a little bit younger than mine, and they were really into that like new romantic era. So we'd get soundtrack of like Human League, Eurythmics on the way to school. And I kind of like, my ears pricked up to that kind of electronic sound in pop music at the time. And that's probably the earliest I remember. And then probably kind of like recording the chart off the radio at home when I think Donna Summer, I Feel Love would have been there at the top somewhere.
Okay.
So that would be 81. So yeah, 4 or 5 years old. That's my earliest memories of kind of realizing I liked the sound of something and kind of wanting to hear it more. You know, if I got in the car with my neighbor and the radio wasn't on, I'd be like, please can you turn the radio on?
Wow, it's crazy the things that spring into our mind.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is, you talk about listening to the charts and things like that. The ironic thing is, you would have been there in years to come with your finger over the pause button, waiting for the DJ to before he started talking, because we didn't want the DJ's voice on the radio, on the music,
exactly.
did we? You say about electronics and New Romantic. I was just automatically going to say, were you ever a geek? We spoke earlier before we came live. We mentioned about Phil Doherty and Pete Gooding's conversation. They were proper geeks. Were you into the Tandy and making your own circuits?
Yeah,
and
absolutely, and making my own aerials so I could get better radio stations, and really kind of into making sure I got the right tech so that I was able to hear radio and listen to it as much as possible, be that, with a brick-sized Walkman or with, something in my bedroom, anything that I could listen to the radio on, it always had to be on. And I remember, so going on a little bit to, like, say, around 10, 11 years old, too young to be going to raves in fields and warehouses, and had already missed the kind of breakdance sort of mid-80s. But I'd watch the breakdance movies, and my dad finally got a car with an FM radio in it, and literally used to sit in the car just scanning for radio stations to see what was out there. And you mentioned Jock Lee when we were talking before we started, and I think he's probably one of the first pirate radio DJs that I heard, because he was on Starlight, right?
Well, say yeah. I'll say yes. I can't.
I'm pretty sure. Around that sort of time, I discovered Starlight, which was playing those kind of rave tunes at the weekend. And it became a kind of like must sometime over the weekend be sitting there and listen to at least, an hour and a half, 2 hours of Starlight to see what. And I'm 12 years old at this point. I've got no idea what the scene is, what's going on out there, but this music just had a kind of draw.
Wow. Just let me ask, because it might be relevant. Brothers or sisters, or were you an only child?
Younger sister.
Okay. Oh, so she wouldn't have had much. She wouldn't have had much influence on you musically then.
Musically, no. I remember the albums that she was sort of getting for Christmas. So you're looking at like Tiffany and Big Fun and kind of much more sort of mainstream pop. Than I didn't have like Pete had an older sister dragging him out to clubs when he was far too young to be there.
Right. So you say about 10, 11, 12, listening to those house records. Do you have any recollection of eventually seeing the news, the press, and the whole what's the word I'm trying to find? How everything was overhyped, sensationalized. Do you ever have much recollection of that?
Yeah, you see, I'd kind of see these reports on the telly news about illegal raves, while like the older generations would be tutting at the telly going, that's terrible. I'd be like, that looks really good. Everyone's having an amazing time, There's no one's moody in any of these pictures. Nothing bad seems to be happening in my eyes. They're all having a brilliant time. And I just, that's when I'd sort of heard music mixed for the first time, seen how it was being kind of played out and about, and I just needed to know more and more and more about what was mixing, what was rave, what was how do I put all these bits together and like figure it out. Do you remember a TV show called Network 7? It was on Channel 4. I think I was about
if I said 88.
And then that Janet Street Porter was involved in it, and then she did Def 2 with Norm Ski Dance Energy. And I used to catch shows like that, which sort of had a lot of fashion, a lot of music, and helped you sort of piece together what the scene actually was, and where this music was happening and who was going and why. And then I saw another thing, which I must have watched it about 50 times, a short film about chilling, which is a 30-minute film about Ibiza. And again, it was like, whoa, this is incredible. This is another place where this music's being played and people are having an amazing time. Every single person in that film's enjoying themselves again. And
that's a must watch. You people have watched that 30, 40 times over the last 25 years.
Yeah, of course, I'm watching that age, 13, and then later in life meeting the people that were in the that were in the film. And then Philipton did a Sunday night show, I think it was at the time, called Stepping Out on BRMB. And all of a sudden you've got somebody not only playing that amazing music, but explaining it to you. Pirate radio, they're playing amazing music, but the communication can sometimes be a little bit, it's sort of shouting out track names. But all of a sudden you got somebody sort of drawing you in and going, here's this amazing tune. Here's why I think it's amazing. I'm going to play it here on this day. And it just, again, was another piece of the puzzle for me.
Completely relatable.
Yeah. And that was the first time I think I heard The Commission, which was Phil Dock and Adam Presti at the time, doing mixes. They were doing mixes for DMC, and Phil had played them on his BRMB show. And their mixing wasn't just sort of two turntables. They got really geeky about it and edited things on 1/4-inch tape. And I was like, I need to know how do you do this? Got a tape deck and I can pause and I can try and chop it on the beat, but that's not really mixing. And then Channel 4 showed the Technics 1989 World Mixing Championships. And that was the first time I seen people mixing with two Technics and a mixer. And that's when it all actually made perfect sense. That's how you do it. You've got to get your music on vinyl. You've got to mix it like this and play it like this to get that effect from a crowd, if you like. And in particular, Cutmaster Swift, his set at that mixing championships was brilliant. He didn't win it, but he did stuff with a handful of records that I'd never seen anybody do before. And that's when I set out to save my money, and I had to have turntables. And I think I saved paper round money for 9 months and bought a pair of Sound Labs, and that was the start.
Brilliant. It's a story that is echoed so many times, and yet it always, the more you hear it, there's always so emotion when people share it, because it meant so much to people. Yeah. And that was the start of me just being this annoying kid who just was so single-minded. Well, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. Because I will come on to that single-mindedness.
Mate, honestly, it was, and at this point, it still didn't ring that it was a career or anything. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. Practicing, be it, in bedroom or playing tunes to mates, making little mixtapes to give out to people. It was just that passion for music and introducing the music you'd found to people was all consuming.
Well, my friend Amy is watching. Good evening, my love. She's going to be sharing some music this year, a little party I'm having. So she's very excited. She knows all about that becoming all consuming, as does Emily. Good evening, my love. Okay, so you got the decks, you got the Sound Labs, you're doing the mixtapes. First time that you went out to an actual club and you remember hearing it and thinking, okay, now this is another level now. Do
you know what? I was trying to think of this earlier. I can't actually remember the first. Oh, I can actually. Yes, I can. Because it was. I don't think she was my girlfriend at the time, but my first girlfriend had a party at a nightclub, like a birthday party. Joe 90s, which is right next to the runway at Birmingham Airport. I don't know if it's still there, but it was a club that they didn't necessarily have a licensed bar, so you could book it for like parties when you were under 18. But it had a strobe light, big sound system, and the DJ played rave music.
Right.
So
90s.
that was the first time in sort of. Do you know what? I couldn't even drive to it. I wouldn't know how to get to it now, but I just remember it being right next to the runway. You could hear the planes coming over. Like a Birmingham version of DC-10.
Slightly less appealing.
Not quite as cool. But yeah, the DJ was playing tunes like Human Resource Dominator and, those sort of big rave crossover tracks of the time with a strobe going. And it was a real...
So we're talking 91, 1991.
Where are we? About 92, 93, that would have been.
Dominator was that late? Well, anyway, it's by the by. It's between 90 and 93. A lot of those years, we're not doing a documentary here, so it's not that important. But we kind of get the idea. And so then, when did you pluck up the courage to give a tape to a promoter?
So I'd 5th year at school, we had a business studies enterprise project to do. And you basically had a little team and you had to go and try and make some money selling something. And the people would kind of go, they'd set up meetings at the local bank so you could go and borrow £50 to fund your enterprise project. And it all went towards your GCSE business studies. And I was like, we don't need to borrow any money. We just need to put on a party, sell some tickets, and we'll have the money up front. And the teacher said, well, send one of your team to the bank to do the interview anyway. And I was like, well, fine. But a couple of posters went up and we sold this thing out in like 2 or 3 days. Wow. And it was an excuse to go to, there was a hire place in Selly Oak called Disco Sound. Okay. And they used to hire out like the Dave Double Decks and flashy lights and sound systems, the ones that were sort of in and out every weekend had been battered around. But I knew that he rented Technics 1200s and I hadn't got those yet. So I was like, if I rent this for the school disco, I've got the Technics for the weekend at home to practice on. So we did this party for school. It was great. And then played with the Technics all weekend. And I was like, I have to save more money now because this is the real deal. This is what's in every club, and the only
night and day, right? Night and day.
Yeah. The only way to sort of push on is to get these. So I started saving for those, and in the meantime, I went to another I don't know if it was a bonfire night party or a local tennis club. Again, it's sort of an under 18s party. And I met a mobile DJ called Gary Sini, who's been a friend ever since. And he was a mobile DJ, but he was a geek when it came to tech. Like he had 1200s, not a sort of Citronic Dave Double Decks. He had a massive sound system, all the latest kit. And so I kind of went up and, dropping all these rave tunes to see if he got them. And he was shaking his head at me like, no, not heard of that. Bizarre Inc. What? Alternate? No, mate. I said, I got them all on vinyl at home. He went, go get your records then. So I think that was the first time I mixed, DJ'd in front of people. I literally went home, got my records and came and played this tennis club disco. And everyone was my age was like, that was brilliant. They were all loving the rave tunes. And then I started making tapes, and I think I sent one to Phil Upton and he played it on the Stepping Out show. Okay. Which is my first kind of being on the radio. That was a bit of a game changer again, because it sort of gives you the confidence to make more tapes and send them out to people. And I think the first tape I actually gave to a promoter was to Pat at Slag at the Steering Wheel. Mm-hmm. And within a few weeks, I got a phone call and I'd got that first gig. So I think that was the first proper Birmingham gig, city centre gig at least, was at the Steering Wheel. Wow. So that was way before Choice was on the horizon. That was, that would have been, it would have been probably a year or two before. When was Slag and Fun at the Steering Wheel? When did those nights start?
I don't know. If you hadn't have asked me now and put me on the spot, I could have told you between 93 and 96.
Yeah. And then Choice kind of happens kind of pretty quick after that, I think. So I'd have been sending tapes into Choice fairly regularly when it got the license from Buzz, right?
Uh-huh. Can you remember who your first port of call, your first point of contact was at Choice?
Yes. Yeah, it was Mark Wright.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark Wright heard my tape, gave me a call. So we're doing this thing called the Traffic Jam. We need more volume of mixes, basically. It's on every day. We're getting some, but we need a lot more made. So yeah, I borrowed a DAT machine and recorded a ton of mixes and sent them in. And then I think a few weeks later, he called me again and said, "Oh, can you do some more?" I said, "Well, I have to keep borrowing a DAT machine." He said, "Oh, come into 95 Broad Street and do it in our production studio." And I think Scully was there on my very first day that I came to do Traffic Jam mixes.
Mm-hmm.
I was really surprised that it was before the two studios that we worked in, but I think it was Scully's office had a pair of Technics and a little scratch mixer and a DAT machine on a table with a window open onto Broad Street, so it wasn't even soundproof. You could hear it walking past outside. I remember thinking, is the radio studios really like this? I thought there might be a little bit more high tech.
Yeah, no, choice was archaic to say the least. So let me give my recollection of the first time that you would have come onto the scene. I was already doing traffic jams. I did Tuesdays and Thursdays regularly, and then I got my own shows alongside Ian Wallman, of course, and together we were the dance. Now, actually, you can tell me whether my recollection is correct or wrong. So Ian and I were the dance division, and then my recollection was that you came onto Choice. You were doing the regular mixes. And you were like, "Can I be in the dance division? Can I be in the dance division? Can I be in the dance division?" Which is why I chuckled earlier about
very likely,
with you being very sort of like, to the point and a dog with the bone. Does that sound right?
It sounds right. I can remember the kind of path to, because I was doing regular mixes, but I never even, at this point, doing mixes for Choice, still had no idea there was a career in radio. I'd never spoken on a mic in a club or on a mic in a radio station, and I never envisaged myself doing so. And I was in there one afternoon doing mixes, and Colin Mason, who owned Choice, came in and he needed an advert on air that afternoon, and he didn't know who I was, and he just said, "You read this."
Everyone always does that voice.
You.
Sergeant Major.
Yeah. And obviously I did what he said, because he did have that kind of military authority, didn't he, Colin? And I think it was for Aberystwyth University or something. And he'd done it initially himself, and I think he'd kind of been chuckled at, and he didn't like that. He came, "Right, you do it." So I recorded that advert, and I think Mark and Brody, Mark was head of music and Brody was sort of program controller. Is that right?
Yeah.
They both heard me speaking, like, "Well, why don't you kind of do a demo for a show?" And I did probably the worst demo anyone's ever heard, because I hadn't thought about what you would say. I'd never really, it wasn't on my radar to be a radio presenter whatsoever. And I actually ended up first doing things like producing the dance chart. Kind of doing all the admin around the dance, and then tech hopping. So I guess you did tech hop shifts as well, and I come in at like right through the night and play out Adil Ray's show, Nick Rayburn's overnight show, and play the links in.
I was Robin Holland and Lee Quinney were the DJs who I used to TO for. So you'd play the music off of CD. I'm giving away all the secrets behind the magic curtain. They would have recorded their links in the day, and then you just play the links in between the music. So you get used to the equipment.
Yeah.
through the early hours of the morning. So that would have been 95 into 96 for me. So do carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, around the same time. But what I can't quite remember is how I ended up doing a show. I can't remember why I presented anything. I remember starting doing the dance chart as my first proper show, because I was producing it already. Brody didn't want to come in on a Saturday. And they said, do you want to do the dance chart? So that was my first actual gig.
Was that before Ian's guest list on the Saturday, or remind me of?
It was 9 till 12.
Did you do it before Simon or after? I can't even remember. There were so many different time slots.
So that was the Saturday. It was just once a week on a Saturday. That was the first one, and then ended up doing a Saturday night thing that was before Ian, I think.
Okay.
Which became Club Tasty.
Uh-huh.
And then we did a bite-sized version of that in the week. That was after Neil arrived.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when it all sort of changed up from the once or twice a week to being a bit more and doing the breakfast show.
More regular. So obviously the more you were on air, the more comfortable you became, the more professional, the more polished it got. All this time you were starting to get more recognition in the clubs as well. You were starting to get more club gigs. We were bringing you on boat parties. We were doing choice parties. It was rolling along quite nice.
And I remember the first time you asked me to do Marco Polos. That was amazing. That's like winning the lottery, being asked to do Marcos, because everyone in Birmingham nightlife was there on a Sunday, right? Everyone that had been out working hard all Saturday night, they'd go to Marco's on a Sunday. And you'd be on the decks for like 20 minutes and 5 people would have asked for your number, and straight away the networking just took off from that point. I think first time I met Madders from Sunday Central was in Marco's.
Yeah, that'd be right. I chuckled again because I remember at one point you were slightly you were accosted by some of my friends on one of the evenings, and you looked a little bit uneasy, but you were cool. But it was
at the boat party.
At the boat party, yeah, which was a lot of the Marco's crew, because it was quite an intimidating crowd.
I can't drink, and they'd got bootleg rum. And I think I was extremely ill that night.
Brilliant memories.
But they were fabulous parties, though, weren't they? They were so good.
Really good. Well, Richard Andrews is saying Brum's version of DC-10 was the Aero Club, and he chuckles, and he says Joe 90s as well. So good evening, Richard. And School is chuckling at your impersonation of Colin.
Colin.
Okay, so I always say this when we're talking. It's we're not going to get the bite by bite story of everything that went down. But momentum was building on the radio for you, and we actually had quite an in-depth conversation for about 20 minutes before we went live, because we haven't spoken for so long. And you touched on a point that I wanted to bring up again, the fact that you weren't necessarily playing at many of the clubs up and down the country. You were prolific in and around Birmingham, but as your success grew, there was that point where you had to make a decision about which avenue you were going to take. Would that have been around this time, or am I getting ahead of myself?
Well, Choice got taken over by Chrysalis, and Chris is obviously a big corporate company, and they got a product that is essentially specialist radio station, but they got to grow it somehow. And I kind of spotted quite early that if you want to be playing underground music on a big platform like that, you also got to cross over some of the more commercial tracks so that you can be trusted enough to play the stuff that people don't know yet. And that's, over the years, it's got more and more and more a part of big radio shows. Is there's so many platforms for people to discover new music that they can kind of go off and find it on little platforms. So if you're broadcasting to a big area like the UK, you kind of need to be playing the big tunes, but then going, I know you love that tune. You're also going to love this person you've never heard of and this underground track you've never heard, because it's like this. It's good. You know, if you were dancing on a dance floor to this and I was to drop it, you would carry on dancing. So, you know, don't turn over your radio because you don't recognize it. Stay with me. And it's that gaining that trust with the listener to play cooler stuff on a big platform. And treading that line sort of became quite obvious when Chrysalis came in and were changed choice to Galaxy, that to sort of stay on those big slots, there was a bit of compromise going to be involved in like the tunes that I'd personally be coming home and sticking on my turntables and the tunes that play on the radio. Still music that I loved. But it just took a little bit more kind of like, right, you know, in a show of say 2 hours, how many of those are going to be big anthems that people are already into, and how many of those are going to be fresher, cooler tracks?
So staying relevant, staying credible as well. You know, as you say, it's a tightrope that you have to walk. Did you ever struggle with that? Yeah. Were you ever torn at times? It is a struggle because you've also got to be constantly going out and knowing what people really are going for, because sometimes you're trying to persuade other people that have an input that don't go to clubs, and you've got to prove this really cool thing that they listen to and think is a bit offbeat and underground. Actually, everyone's loving this and they're all dancing to it. Bit easy these days. You take your smartphone out and you go, look, there's a reaction. There's 800 people going mad to this new track. But back then you kind of had to gain that trust so you could go, look, you're going to be playing this on the breakfast show in 6 weeks. So trust me that this is a tune that you need to be playing. And did you gain their trust of the powers that be, so they listen to you?
I think that was the key to carrying on doing big dance music shows on radio over the years, is just to make sure you're backing up everything that you play by testing it on a dance floor in lots of different places. Because you know, back in those days, not only was I playing Steering Wheel, Sunday Central, but I'd still play Dome, I'd still play Atlantis, Wolverhampton, I'd still play big leisure clubs as well. So you're getting to see what's working for a big commercial crowd, what's working on the underground, and then formulate a show and a playlist based on that.
Okay, so the specialist shows, remind me, did you ever get pulled in to do breakfast drive or mid-mornings? Because you have to forgive me, it's all a blur.
The Saturday morning dance chart show on Choice did really, really well. It was just the 30 biggest bangers, and dance music was flying at that time. So it just became a runaway success. And Neil Greenslade wanted to... I had some other radio stations approach me and said to Neil, look, I've got some other offers here. And he said, well, I want to change the breakfast show. I need to get it right. Can you bring that energy, but also do some content and do you think you could do breakfast? And so rather than
whilst playing Shakira.
Well, back then we were still playing soca, reggae, ragga, all on the breakfast show still on Choice. You had to play, I think, 3 reggae tracks an hour, a soca track a show.
The promise of performance.
It was right across the board. So it was a breakfast show that needed someone that understood that music, but could also kind of bring that young energy to the show. So I still wasn't ready to leave Brum then. I got offers in Brighton, I got offers in Cardiff, and with a bit of persuasion from Colin Mason again. Let's say, oh, you're not going. I took breakfast. So I did breakfasts. Must have been a year and a half.
Okay.
With Schoolie before Schoolie, so it was me on breakfast, Schoolie on mids. Who did drive back then? Mark Wright was doing it when I started.
Was it Sasha? There's a little bit of a delay, so Simon will tell us, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because it was Dell, and I can't remember the full lineup then, because it was quite quick when it became Galaxy, and I moved to the evening show.
So remind me, I do know this, but whenever I talk, my brain goes empty. Was that 97 into 98?
Yeah,
or later?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, 98. Yeah. 98 was the takeover.
Okay.
And we carried the 1200s up Broad Street, a block or two. And yeah, Galaxy launched, and that was when kind of first started getting really good input on how to be a better radio presenter, because we didn't really have much feedback at Choice, or sort of, we didn't have that structure in place, did we, to kind of coach and nurture, I suppose.
There was none. Yeah, Dal and
really.
Dal and Adil Ray, Dal Rogers and Adil Ray. Simon is saying. So I mean, we talk about success stories. Adil Ray, I mean, unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Well, we worked together at Huddersfield University for a year. But when I was on, so I was doing breakfast on Choice, and I'd do the Saturday morning dance chart, Saturday evening show live, and then drive to Huddersfield, where he was Ents manager, and do a big club night up there at the university. An amazing venue that was a converted church.
Wow. I wonder if that's where the original Hard Times used to be. Was it called the Bel Air, maybe?
It was called, I think it was called the church at the time in Huddersfield, yeah.
It could, I mean, you say converted church, that's where Hard Times was. Sorry, I'm taking you off of a tangent. So we moved up to, was it 111 or something like that?
Yeah, the square.
Oh, not the square, that was it,
square,
of course.
Yeah.
Beautiful offices.
They got knocked down about 6 months ago, I think, didn't they?
No way.
Yeah, demolished, and I think they've been turned into flats.
I've just got a picture in my head of eating kebab on the desk late at night. For some reason. Good times. All right, so to carry on then, breakfast show, 18 months.
Yeah, then on to evenings at Galaxy. Dave Clark came in, Darren Daly came in, Schooley was doing Drive, and then it was myself on evenings. We carried on doing the dance chart on a Saturday morning, carried on doing the Club Tasty show on a Saturday night. But the evenings just gave me a chance, because I had no clue what I was doing on a breakfast show. Before I got given that job, I didn't even know I was going to be a radio presenter. That was the first time I realised, oh, this is actually a job.
That's because the pay packet probably didn't reflect it.
Well, there were two pay grades at Choice, if you remember. £3 an hour if you didn't speak, and £5 an hour if you spoke. I think that was it. That was the pay structure in a nutshell. But I still wake up in the night now in like cold sweat, thinking, I need to get a job. I haven't got a real job. What am I doing? So yeah, that was the point when I, young enough to sort of go, oh yeah, I'm going to give this a blast. And realised there might be a career in playing music and pushing buttons.
Amazing. And again, as Galaxy expanded, the club nights expanded, we were doing more outside broadcasts, did to up and down the country, all around the Midlands, and you would have been pushing that as well a lot more.
Yeah, we did. Do you remember the one we did at? Oh no, that's still Choice. We did Custard Factory. Really fun gig at the Custard Factory in that big corner unit. That was still Choice, wasn't it? Because I think it was Choice banners in that one. That was right towards the end before it became Galaxy. And then I mean, the gigs at Galaxy went off the scale. We did one at might have been DNA at the time on John Bright Street,
and that.
It was full inside, and the entire street, John Bright Street, was people that had come to the gig that couldn't get in, and they asked me to go out on the balcony with a megaphone and say, "Really sorry, you're not coming." And I was like, "There's no way I'm going out in front of 1,200 people to say go home."
Justin Wilkes, the voice of the people, getting bottled, coming out like Michael Jackson. Oh dear. Okay. Well, I mean, there's so many different circumstances and situations, but there must have been a turning point. Was it your doing when things changed, or were changes forced upon you?
No, it was so. Obviously, we're doing all the club nights, playing amazing nights like Money Pennies, all on that Birmingham scene. But radio wise, I was doing the evening show, and Chris Liss had this job that was listed in the radio. I think there's a little radio magazine every month or something. It was paper at the time that basically told you all the vacancies. And there was this project they were running called Ride the Tiger.
Okay.
And it sort of put my interest. It was the .com boom had started, lastminute.com, all these amazing websites were getting ridiculous investments. And Chris Liss had got a pot of money to try and do an internet radio station. And I being a bit of a geek and being into my tech, I thought this could be the next big thing. This is something that I shouldn't miss out on. And it was being managed by Keith Pringle, who was the group program controller at Galaxy. And I'd learned a lot from Keith, and I'd put a lot of faith in putting me on the evening show. When radio stations get bought out, there's usually a lot more people straight out the door. And people tell you takeovers in the past where lots of shows have been straight away, lots of people out the door, fresh start. And Keith had kind of come into choice and not been heavy-handed, going, well, who can I work with? Who can I nurture? And he was running this project. I thought, you know what? I'll give him a call and find out what it's all about. And I went down for a drink with him in London, and he sold it to me. It's like, everyone's going to have a broadband. This is very much the year 2000. Everyone's going to have 100 meg broadband, and you're going to get in your car and dock your phone, and all your radio is going to be on your phone. It's not going to be on your car stereo anymore. And we're going to run 32 channels, and you're going to present on all of them. So go in the morning and you do everything from classic rock to banging, hard dance. And you do a show on each channel, and then the listener picks their favorite music, but they still get you at that time of day. Which was amazing if people weren't still on dial-up internet. And we're 20 years ahead of time. So I carried on doing the weekend shows, but gave up the evening Galaxy show to come to London and do what became puremix.com.
Okay.
And we had a load of fun. I mean, it was way ahead of its time, and it had all the kind of .com elements of, too much investment on the wrong things. But the product was actually really cool. The way that you got your radio station was it would ping you some tunes, and you go, well, I prefer Gabrielle to Artful Dodger, and I prefer this to this. And in like sort of 8 or 9 questions, it would set up a load of presets on your computer that were like presets in your car. And all of a sudden you got this range of stations that you could dip into.
It's like the earliest of algorithms, really, for your...
I mean, it was the sort of stuff that you take for granted now in an app. Mm-hmm. But 23 years ago, it wasn't really, people hadn't really cottoned onto it. So,
did you leave Birmingham with a heavy heart, or did you skip happily down the M6?
No, it was definitely with a heavy heart. I really liked where I grew up. I had it was very chilled. I had good network of friends. It just felt like something I needed to do. Again, that, as I said, the kid that's always just so single-minded on something, I was like, to get to the next level, I'm going to have to do this, I think. And I didn't really move down properly for a while. I kind of hovered between. I was still doing Bakers, actually, every other weekend.
Okay.
So Dave Pearce did one weekend and I did the other weekend. So I was still coming up to do, I think it was called Horny at Bakers, which is probably the last. Oh, and Key Largo on Broad Street.
Oh, Key Largo.
I had a Sunday residency at Key Largo for years, which was really good. Mm-hmm. Because everyone on Broad Street was playing the sort of banging tunes, and we played kind of like more laid back, groovy house and sort of poolside stuff on a Sunday night. And built that up, and that was really, so I was still coming back for those. So I didn't really settle. And I dropped my tapes to Kiss a few times and I hadn't got anywhere. Again, I discovered Kiss back at about the same time as Short Film About Chilling. Mixmag did a centre spreads with the entire Kiss schedule at the time. So there's everyone from like David Rodigan to Colin Dale, Judge Jules, and there was a CD on the front cover with the Kiss FM master mixes. So it's Jules, I think Danny Rampling had a mix on there. So I dropped my tapes to Kiss quite regularly. And then one afternoon, I'm recording, there were 32 shows a day on Pure Mix. And, but with the weekend, which didn't work, it meant recording 48 shows a day. So after a few months of that, it was starting to kind of bog me down, and I was jumping on the train back to Brum. I thought, I've never, ever dropped a tape to Capital Radio. Capital hadn't been on my radar particularly growing up, apart from BRMB, knowing that it was a sort of the sister channel. I didn't really know how big Capital was, or, you know, the sort of amazing reach and the kind of power of the talent there. And so I dropped a tape in on my way back to get the train to Brum. Got back on the train in the morning to come back down to London in my Galaxy jacket. And I got a phone call from the boss's PA at Capital saying, "Can you come in?" And I was, "Yeah, I can come in." Complete stroke of luck. One of the producers, who's now a friend, had said to Jeff, the boss at the time, "My mate's going to drop a tape in later. So I know you're looking for someone for weekend overnights." And he thought that was the tape that he'd been told about, and it wasn't. It was mine. So when it landed, he went straight down and picked it up. I mean, normally these things would go in a box, right? And you're lucky if they ever get listened to. But, you know, maybe once a month they get dug through, and you might get lucky to get heard. Came straight down and listened to my demo that I dropped off the day before, and that's why I was getting called back into the office. Went in and had a chat, and he said, "Can you come and do a pilot for us?" So I've gone from literally...
The demo was a mix with some voiceovers?
It was
a presented show. It
was my best links from Galaxy, I think it was.
Okay.
So I remember we used to run Snoop tapes in the studio on Galaxy, or run DATs all the time. I still, you know, in the rack back there, there's still tons of Galaxy stuff. I've got loads of your shows.
Weren't they all old VHS? Weren't they all old VHS tapes?
Logged on VHS tapes, yeah. But you could put a tape in, and every time you open the mic, it would record your voice link.
Yeah.
It was the sort of the best links from a couple of months of Galaxy shows. So yeah, within a week, I was in Capital Radio doing a pilot with amazing producers, with people that were working with Kat Deely and Edith Bowman, with Ben Cooper, who ran Radio 1 for years. And my demo was awful.
Really?
Absolutely.
We'll hold that thought about the awful demo. Simon's just asked, we're backtracking ever so slightly, did you do the official Galaxy Weekend CD? Simon's asking.
My face is on the inside cover, I think. Yes, okay. I think I did.
It was that good, he doesn't remember. It's there somewhere. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back to the awful demo.
On that one, there's me, Schoolie, One Step. There's a good 8 or 9 DJs on the inside cover of that CD, if I remember right.
I bet I'm not on there.
You would have been if you were still doing the garage show at the time, right?
Yeah, but I was there till 2002, but that's all a blur. That's all a complete blur. So let's get back to this the awful demo then.
Awful demo. Get a call. Have another go. Very, very polite sort of. That was nothing like your demo that you dropped on tape. So yeah, come back in. You've had a go. You're in the. You know, it's just quite overwhelming going into Capital Radio studios, and you've never been. It's something that at that scale, working with those sorts of people. Come in, we'll give you another couple of hours and see what you can do. So then had a meeting probably about a week after that, and Jess said to me, I said, "Oh, did you like the demo?" And he went, "Said, can you do a show like that tape you brought in I said, yeah. He said, well, I'll give you 3 months to prove yourself.
Wow.
And they put me on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, overnights, midnight till 5. Which is the point where I'm like, well, I've got to move to London now. And also that was a bit of a point of going, radio is now going to lead rather than clubs, because I'm going to be on the radio Friday and Saturday nights, midnight till 5. So I can't be DJing in clubs. So I had to give up the Key Largo residency, had to give up Baker's and focus on trying to learn radio, I guess.
So tell us about decisions that you would have made for people who aren't aware of the mechanics of how it all works. How much choice do you have with the music, and how much are you dictated to by a playlist or a general direction?
So for me, it's varied a lot over the years, depending on who's
at
the boss.
this point where you were there.
At this point, it was brilliant because Jeff said to me, "There's 5 hours. There's a rough playlist of weekend stuff that we want to play, but you get 5 tracks an hour free play. So that's like 25 tunes on Capital Radio on a Friday, Saturday, not so many on a Sunday, I don't think, to do what you want with." And I said, well, you know, what's it got to be? He went, cool as you like, just play the best white labels, it was just like, do your thing. So yeah, with a kind of like skeleton log of music that they wanted to be played. So they would be like the big tunes that had crossed over into the chart, but were either dance or R&B.
Like a Spiller, Soul Nugget.
Yeah. Not the pop or guitar based stuff, but anything that was rhythmic. And then to fill the rest of it up as cool as I wanted it to be.
Wow. Did you find yourself the darling of all the labels then, who were bestowing all of their hot new tracks on you? You know, because you're in a very esteemed position, right?
We had like the vinyl boxes you've got behind you. We had a pigeonhole at Capitol for record labels to come in and put what they wanted in there, and it was full. Every few days you'd have to empty it. There was at one stage I was getting 120 12 inches a week. That's just vinyl 12 inches. And then all the CD singles and all the pop stuff and all the albums and that. But it was what was really good about it back then is your music pluggers were very personal. They listened to the show. They knew what the show was playing, and they didn't ring you up and go, I've got this track, and you wouldn't like it. They'd know what to service you with. You build up pretty good rapport with people because you need them as much as they need you. You need people that understand what music you're looking for to help get it to you and filter it for you. Obviously, you get the odd awful tune that someone's trying to push, and you do get people turning up at 3 a.m. trying to sing through the window at you their tune and crazy stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, so this is 2001, 2002.
Yeah, that's 2001, 2002, and every year I was at Capitol for 6 years, and every year I had a new boss, and a new boss came in, and they were changing up the schedule. They took, I think it was Rachel Hopper was doing overnights to bring her on to daytime, and they said to me, "Can you cover 3 other overnights as well as the 3 that you're doing?" So I was doing those 3 overnights, but I was also getting to cover Schoolie. Schoolie's show is amazing. It's such a fun show to do because it was 2 hours and there was so much in it that you walked through the door and it felt like 2 minutes and you were back out. There was so much stuff in it and it was so lively and there was so much interaction. And we got, even on a commercial radio station, we still got to play some pretty cool music. And I covered Box's Jukebox on a Sunday night. You've never seen so many phone calls in 60 minutes for requests on the radio. It was literally 7 o'clock. The switchboard just lit up for the entire night. You could you could have put 50 people answering phones and wouldn't have got through all the.
Did you ever feel overwhelmed? Did you ever feel overwhelmed by any of it?
Standing in that studio trying to do an overnight show, looking at the logo, thinking, how am I even in this building? It was ridiculous, but everyone was so friendly and so supportive. And Chris Tarrant rang before my first show to wish me luck. And it's like, wow, you're Chris Tarrant, you're ringing me up. I'm on in the middle of the night. It had that kind of team feel from right the way through the schedule. But yeah, it was really kind of frightening.
Did you struggle with it for long, or was it like a moment of, oh shit, and then it was just like, well, I've got to get on with it? Or were there ever any times where you did really get like shaky feet, shaky legs?
I was learning again from the start. It felt like back to square one because it was a completely different way of doing radio. It was much more sort of conversation, and I had to learn to do that because I was good at shouting about a tune that I loved in a really enthusiastic way, and that was my show, really. It's going, I love this. And
someone came along, someone would have came along and said, that's okay, Justin, but we need to rein it in a little bit.
And you just take it down a notch and just, have a chat about that and, just put a bit more context to it. And I was just still doing what I'd done at school, was going, oh mate, I've got this rave tune, you've got to hear it. You don't have that. It's brilliant, isn't it? That was what I was doing. Because again, I hadn't really thought that this was going to be. So many people say, oh, they did hospital radio, and I might have kind of mixed tunes and had a mic or whatever, like a pirate radio station in my bedroom, but I didn't think I'd be trying to craft the show. Mm-hmm. So Capital really was kind of starting from scratch and learning from really good people. And there was a lot of feedback. There was a lot of good producers. There was a lot of, obviously, some amazing presenters to kind of hear how they did it. I went to 6 overnights. I was told it was going to be 3 months, and I think it was a year and a half. And I don't really know what happened during that time, because your sleep is so messed up and you just can't commit anything to memory. So I don't really know what was going on that would have been 2002, 2003. No idea. I started to do gigs again in the week in London because I started to get a bit of a profile in London. So I was able to go out on like a Tuesday night and, midweek gigs. But that just made it even worse, because you go out, do a gig, go and do an overnight, which probably started a bit later in the week at 2 or something like that, and then not sleep and not know what day it was. So that's kind of when, there's quite a bit of sacrifice goes in. You think, well, do I want to do this? I'm not, I'm working every bank holiday. I'm working every night. So I'm on a Friday, Saturday evening when everyone's going out after work, I'm either asleep or I'm.
Well, you say about sacrifice. Where are you in your personal life at this juncture?
At this point, all over the place again, because I can only go out. The only night I'm not working is a Thursday night. Mm-hmm. So Thursday night, I was like, I've got to party tonight. I have to go out. If I'm going to meet a girl, it's got to be Thursday night. And like my mates, that I had in London at the time were working, that had come down from Brum, were working for like banks and stuff. So I'd be ringing them, okay, do you want a little quick drink? Knowing that I was going to try and get them to a club. And, I'd have my friends ring me on Friday morning going, I wish I hadn't come out with you last night, Justin. Where's my laptop? Where's my suit? I don't know what's going on, and I've got to work. And so you just focused on that, trying to have your life in one day. Which isn't healthy. It's not good. And you end up, drinking coffee 24 hours a day just to sort of feel like you're awake at the right time.
So on the surface, it all looks all very glamorous, but you painted a very tough picture there of what it was really like.
The glamorous bits, for instance, couple of weeks into working there was the first Capital Awards that I went to, which is it's like an awards show for the pop industry. And I'd already worked all the way through the night, and then I got to go sit and have 3-course dinner and watch an awards, that's when I normally go to bed. So I might be sitting next to sort of Kat Deely, sitting next to Chris Tarrant's wife on this side, and Jerry Halliwell's just walked past, and Robbie Williams is about to perform or something. I just want to go to sleep. It's brilliant. Your brain's just not in that place when you're working those hours.
Right.
Yes, and it was hard. You know, you never know when that's going to improve. You always hope, right? If you do a good job, there's some progression there.
Mm-hmm.
But in radio, it's never.
So again, I keep mentioning about frustration and feeling out of your zone. Was frustration starting to creep in, or were you still just happy to be doing it, or did it start to then?
Still young enough to be just happy to be doing it, you know.
Okay.
Still got that kind of work ethic, you know, that I'd learned from the members of my family. That, you know, if you work really hard, then you'll do all right, you know. So it's just sort of focusing and going, wow, yeah. And at this point as well, I'd still say yes to anything that came up that was extra work. I'd say, yeah, I'll do that. You know, I'll give that a go. I'd still bad at it, but you get to the point where you realize you can't do everything, and you got to push some things back and say no to stuff. And but at the time, I was still saying yes.
So you could focus and hone. Okay. So what changed? What was the turning point where you were taken from the midnight hours?
I think it was third boss was Keith Pringle again. So Keith had come down and was consulting at Capital and became program controller, and he knew what I did dance wise at Galaxy, and he knew me from Choice, and he's like, I've got an idea for a Saturday night sequence. It's 10 hours long. Do you want to present it? I know, just the guy that likes doing long shifts and silly hours. Do you want to do this? So it was a 6-hour dance music show and 4 hours of chill out. And that's it. When I'd done the Pure Mix project, I did a chill out show on the side. That's a story we can dip into, actually, because it links in with Ibiza and Pete Gooding and kind of discovering the other side of electronic music. But anyway, I ended up doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights instead of overnights.
Okay,
so it got me a bit more of a body clock.
Just confirm for me, is this regional or is this syndicated national?
So this started as London. We called it Party Capital. It was a hot mixed format that hadn't really been done before. So we started mixing with radio edits instead of 12 inches. So all the mix shows up till then, you've been mixing 12 inches like you would in a club. We were like, how do we make this faster? How do we make this more energetic? It's London, it's Saturday night, but it's got to be big. So we decided to chop all the tracks down and mix with radio edits. So we were smashing, as soon as the second chorus had finished, next tune in, and it just gave the whole sequence this huge energy. And we took the ads out as well, which is a bit of a risk in commercial radio. We had the ads at the top of the hour, and we mixed the whole hour. And it did really, really well in London. And so then some of the other stations said, well, can you make a version for us? And that's when we started to syndicate that. It got syndicated to BRMB, it got syndicated to Power. It got syndicated to, we had a service called Holiday FM for a while, that we used to make the content for, which went out on cruise ships, and it went out in like Costas and Holiday Islands. And we made a version of it for that. So basically it was the same mix, but every station had their own version of it.
Okay. When you said they had their own version,
they would have their
own jingles, with their own jingles on there.
I'd literally do a specific localized version of the same show for them.
Okay, I get you.
Wow,
and that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
It was all burnt on CDs as well. So we'd be chucking out sort of 40, 50 CDRs every week to all the different stations with all the different show parts on, and then having to write that up so a tech op could kind of get the head around what it was and how to play it. So yeah,
that's taken on some work there, and it's great that they gave you that responsibility. So you obviously shone at what you did with that.
With again, it's fusing that kind of geeky side of what I'd seen going back to Cutmaster Swift to Phil, Doc and Adam editing mixes for the commission. Is how do you make this amazing music come to life on the radio? We know how to do it in a club because you can see the audience in front of us. We know if we've played a dud track. We know if we've left it on too long because you can see people kind of on the radio. How do we know that we've got the right energy in this entire hour? That was the art of it, was trying to predict that if we put these tunes in this order and mixed it this way, that people wouldn't want to turn it off.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's got to be difficult because you have to still I'll keep coming back to the same thing. You have to keep the credibility as well, because otherwise it just sounds like a Jive Bunny mega mix, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very easy to sound like that. You've probably heard mixes on the radio that sound exactly like that, because you've got to be going out to clubs and feeling that music with people that also feel that music to understand why they like it and what the reaction's going to be. If you just go, oh, these are the big tunes right now, let's chuck a loop under it and put them together, it doesn't have, you can have the same set of records and not get it right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but it's a lot of volume. It took, I think, 2.5 days every week just to prepare the mixes. Solid studio time just to prepare everything before you even got in the studio to play it and talk over it.
Very, very, very quick geek question. What medium, what program were you using to edit them all together?
Well, this is before the days of Ableton Live. So we, a friend of mine called Adam Kay, who I work with at Tomorrowland in Belgium now and on various different projects, was a producer at Capitol at the time. And we sat and we recorded the entire library of music at different beats per minute. So we've got everything like 127, 129 and 132 beats per minute. And then we could drop it into Adobe Audition and actually mix it in Audition without, we hadn't got the software, wasn't capable of doing what you can do in minutes now with Ableton Live. We were doing it in a normal editing program that couldn't bend the pitch.
Well, that's why I asked, because I was aware of that. And I was just thinking.
And then we'd make little pieces that went between the different beats per minute. So if we wanted to go from Gypsy Woman at 127 to ATB at 132, we'd got a piece that we could chuck in the middle that would ramp us up. And then we'd build it on Audition.
Right. Okay. End of the tech, end of the geekiness, because otherwise we'll be here all afternoon.
As the show progressed, we ended up mixing a lot of it live as well, because we, as the radio studios sort of caught up with the tech that we needed to do it, they put in the Pioneers and the effects units and things into the studio, so we could I did probably half of it mixed live then. Wow. Once I can actually do that. Yeah.
Well, that's some feat to do that, because you've got to know your tunes, you've got to get the flow perfect, right?
Yeah, it's tricky, as well as there's so much interaction coming in on those shows that you've got to be, across it all. So yeah, it was intense. That was really good fun then, because it's not the middle of the night, it's peak time, playing the music you want to play with that kind of audience interaction on a big platform. Mm-hmm. Sorry, my computer's asking me to do an update. No.
We're busy, computer. Okay, so just looking at the time, we've been having a great chat, an hour and 10 minutes in. There's no time constraint here, so I'm happy to continue listening to this. I will say to everybody watching the recording, then please do give the video a like and let Justin know what you've enjoyed about his words so far. We've still got a long way to go yet, so come on, let's continue. Let's continue with the timeline.
So obviously being on Capitol gives you a platform for lots of different things, and voiceovers being the sort of dance guy on a Saturday night on Capitol led to getting an agent. Never had an agent before, didn't know what an agent really was until I got to London, who then said, well, you need a voice agent, you need a club booking agent. so I got a voice agent, and they sent me to casting for Sky. Sky One had been going for a long time, but they wanted to launch another channel, which was initially called Sky One Mix. It became Sky Two, and I went in to audition for this, and got given a script and went straight in with the Ministry sound voiceover, shouty, "The Simpsons, 6 o'clock tonight, that one." And the guy in the other studio looked at me. He's a brilliant Tasmanian producer. And he said, "Mate, can you just like take it down a notch?" And so I was like, "The Simpsons, 6 o'clock, Sky One." And he was like, "Now 10 notches." And I went, "Simpsons, 6 o'clock, Sky One." "Thanks, mate." And I walked out and I walked past loads of famous people sitting outside coming in for this casting. I was like, I don't know what happened there. I read this thing 3 times. And I got the gig.
Really?
Randomly. So I ended up, that was the start of sort of continuity and voiceovers, and ended up, once an agent realizes they put you in for a casting like that, and you do a good job and you bring the money back for them, they tend to put you up for everything until you stop bringing the money in. You know, it's like if they know that there's a likelihood of getting the work, if they ping you forward, then so yeah, ended up doing tons of album voiceovers, big artists, the HMV Christmas campaign and the HMV TV campaign for years, and some really fun voice bits.
Cool. Mark Wilkinson has just joined us and says, "Yo, so good evening, Mark. I'm sure he's just finished one of his coaching calls. Pleasure to have you with us, my friend." And again, I've got it written down in front of me, a massive letter, so it keeps catching my attention. Did you ever struggle when you're doing the voiceovers? Was there ever a time where you were asked to do things that maybe did feel a little bit cheesy, or was that long gone now? Was that a long forgotten concern?
Yeah, no, there was nothing that was particularly cheesy. It was, the big commercial albums, but they wanted my sound. They wanted me to sound like I did presenting a dance music show. So they were either dance music related things, or that was the energy that they wanted in the commercial. So
it's very authentic.
Back then, yeah, it was fairly authentic. Some of them were a bit more shouty and hyper. I think there was a Ministry album, Maximum Bass, which is speed garage and like proper high BPMs. And then we ended up standing on the opposite side of the studio and just yelling the script. But it was still sort of fun, and it wasn't you didn't feel like you've been asked to, it wasn't sort of selling ambulance chasing solicitors. It was, right. It was for a fun album. So
it wasn't a Blue Mountain. It wasn't a Blue Mountain Theatre advert. Do you remember those?
I do. Yeah. Gosh. I remember playing those. Two Follow Me Yard was the one when I first started Choice that was running. Yeah,
he was a mama man. Anyway, sorry, I'll keep getting sidetracked. So the continuity, the voiceovers is doing well. The agent is keep putting work your way, and so you continuing to make noise and getting recognised in all the right circles.
Yes, that's just became a sort of constant stream of gigs that weren't, I say they were more commercial gigs at the time, but I also ended up playing places like Turn Mills, which was amazing. So there was a sort of steady stream of gigs, not as much as I was doing in Birmingham back in the Galaxy days at that point. And then I'd go do a show, go do some continuity, go do an ad normally. That was a kind of average day. And so I ended up, as well as mixing the music on the Saturday night show, I ended up scheduling the music as well. So we started off a bit like I said with the overnight show, where half of it's kind of scheduled and half of it's then selected. So it was generally the older stuff would be scheduled so that it rotated nicely and you weren't hearing the same old tracks regularly. And then I'd put all the new stuff in. And the music team changed. I ended up just programming that whole 10-hour sequence. So from sort of 6 on a Saturday night till 4 in the morning was completely scheduled, mixed, and presented, produced in-house. And that went on. I think we did that. It's till 2004. I first got a Kiss approach, because that Saturday night show started to do well against their Saturday night show, and Kiss. It was a weekend, massive weekend vibe from Kiss back then. You know, even people that would listen to Capital in the week would switch over at the weekend, because Kiss was the kind of big London weekend station, you know. Or people of all ages on a Friday night would be dipping in to get ready for the weekend with Kiss, and we'd started to change that a little bit and keep some of the Capital lot with us, and that had kind of sort of set a little alarm going with Kiss, and that was when I first started talking to them. And I remember I'd sent demos to Kiss. I wanted to work for Kiss. I'd listened to Kiss. I'd stuck aerials out of my window as a 13-year-old so I could listen to Kiss. Every time I came to London with a Walkman as a kid, I'd stick Kiss on. I'd record tapes of all the DJs so that I'd got some stuff. Older friends with older brothers that went to uni, I'd be like, oh, can you record some Kiss next time you come back? Bring me a tape, you know? So that conversation started then. And as generally happens in radio, things actually take quite a while to come to fruition. And in 2006, I got the call up to go to Kiss and do morning show. So back to actually regular, normal working hours to a degree. It was a daytime show. It was Monday to Friday, and it was playing an hour of Kisstory, relaunching Kisstory, which had been like a CD brand and a strand of programming that had got a little bit kind of attached with that late rave scene. Mm-hmm. It was time to kind of move it on.
For some reason in my head, there was a period where I had convinced myself that you actually invented Kisstory for some reason. And then I realised that you didn't.
Can't remember what the first iteration of it was, but there was a compilation CD called Kisstory. And it had been on at an hour at 9 o'clock in the morning on the morning show. And I think it had been on a Sunday night, and it had kind of been rolled back in again. And this was the point to relaunch it. There was some new presenters coming. It would all happen at the same time, and Kisstory would relaunch as a 1 hour strand in the morning show, but at 11, not 9. We thought actually 9 o'clock, traditionally commercial radio always tries to do something at 9 to get people who are listening to breakfast who are now going into the office to kind of remember to stick it back on at 9. Mm-hmm. So you've got your traditional things like time tunnels, but we were like, well, actually, our listeners maybe at 9 o'clock, if they are going into the office and working, have got to do some work at 9 o'clock. So what about we wait until they're a little bit jaded with the 2 hours of work they've just done and give them a reason to let their foot off the gas and have a little moment.
Very interesting.
So that's where we put Kisstory at 11 instead of at 9. And that was the relaunch of, well, it was a relaunch of Kiss as a lineup, and the bringing back of Kisstory.
Cool. So it was Kisstory was the tune of the 2000s then, because that was around about the same time slot, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just that little thing that you can do every day, and it becomes a habit. And if you're consistent enough with it, I think with radio, consistency is really important, because you know what you're getting then. You know, if you stick it on at 11, you're not going to get a dud. You're going to get a brilliant hour of tunes that you love and you can rave about.
The word is comforting, isn't it? It is comforting to have that familiarity every day.
When I used to drive in to do my evening show at Galaxy, I would listen to Mark and Lard quite regularly, because they did the same thing at the same time every day, sometimes exactly the same joke, and it was still funny. And it was that bit of comfort and that bit of routine on your way in to do your routine, and that little bit of escape while driving in 20 minutes in the car. And it's that same thing with Kisstory. It's like, well, every day at 11, colleagues, if you're supposed to be working, you all stick your headphones in, you can all kind of nod at each other and, remember that one. And that what really helped us as well is like Twitter was really taking off at the time as a social platform. And we sometimes radio stations can be quite protective over pushing to another platform. We don't own Twitter. Why are we bigging up Twitter? You text us, you phone us, you go to our website. We decided that Twitter was actually quite a good one for us, because if people are talking about the show on Twitter, other people are going to see it and go, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And we started trending quite regularly in the morning with our Kisstory hashtag. And it meant that people, you might have a mate you don't know he loves Art for Dodgers Rewind as much as you do. You tweet about it. Oh, mate, you listen to Kisstory as well. It just sort of created this kind of community and amazing buzz around what was just an hour of playing good tunes that we all knew and loved.
Mm-hmm. And what was the criteria for a record to appear in that hour?
Generally more than 4 years old, and it was all about emotional connection to the record. Wasn't a case of did it chart, did it sell lots of units? It's about, does that tune make you want to go back to where you were when you first heard it? If I played you Sandstorm, could you remember when you first heard it? Yeah, I remember playing it in Merry Hill in Dudley and people going absolutely nuts. First time I dropped that track on a 12-inch in a club. I saw people enjoy it that way. The tracks had to be those tunes that made people feel like that.
You had full call on what was selected, or was your team of you?
No, it was a team of us. Mm-hmm. So it was Andy, the boss of Kiss. It was Christian, the head of music at Kiss. It was anybody in the office that had an emotional connection to a tune to throw in. Okay. I brought a kind of call list over with me, and I mixed a third of it. So it's in 3 parts, and 1 part would be mixed. But it was generally scheduled apart from the mix from that call list of tracks. But we would, whereas sometimes in radio you get a library of tunes and everyone's like, well, that's the library and we're going to play those ones to death. With Kisstory, it had to evolve, because otherwise it gets stuck in a time, doesn't it? And so we would, if something did feel tired, it would come off. If something that was just a little bit newer felt like you could have that same reaction to it, it would go on.
Okay.
And therefore it evolved really slowly, but it still just became the best stuff that was at least 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm. So I'm only aware of things that happen down the line with Kisstory, so I don't want to skip forward too much. But at the same time, was there anything happened in these years that were quite momentous? Because then I'm thinking about taking over huge stages at festivals and
Yeah. So we started the Kisstory Club Night at the O2.
Okay.
I'm a bit hazy as to when this actually happened. I can't remember the exact year, but it was about 2.5 years in to doing the show is when it really started to hit big numbers. And people kind of think it was a bit of an overnight success, and that, oh well, it's an easy show to do because everyone knows it and everyone loves it. But it didn't start that way. It took 2.5 years to build to a critical mass where people were talking about it every day. People knew what it was, and it, instead of talking about the genres of music, people just called it Kisstory, which is an amazing thing to hear. Someone talking about a track and, oh yeah, that's Kisstory, not, oh yeah, that was a garage anthem, or yeah, that was a great dance tune. Oh yeah, it's Kisstory. So it's sort of, we'd kind of reinvented this same pool of tunes that we loved at uni and that we kind of broke the first time rounds, straight out of off a test pressing sometimes. We were basically rebranding that pool of amazing tunes. And so then the club night launched at the O2, and we thought it would probably be reasonably old crowd, as you know, Kiss traditionally targeted 15, 24-year-olds at the time. We were expecting a much older demographic to turn up for our O2 party. And it was quite the opposite. It was a massive mix, and there were way more young people than we expected. And by event 3, it was sold out, and it's sold out ever since.
And so the dynamics of the two different cultures, for want of a better word, worked well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there was some of the music that charted in the early noughties probably wasn't the sort of tunes you go out with a bunch of your mates and throw shapes to, you know. Wasn't really Lamborghini music. So I think a lot of people still hark back to those late 90s, because those anthems are really, really friendly tunes. And it's easy for anyone to get into. And it's that, for me, it still has the vibes of Birmingham clubbing, where everyone's welcome. Anyone can come in here, whether you're from Four Oaks or Castle Brom, and enjoy this music together. And Kisstory really kind of has that vibe. It's just like, oh, do you remember this tune? There's nothing, there's no sort of swagger, cool, you know, you're not cool enough to listen to this track. And it's just a really fun era of tunes and genres of tunes that anyone can come in and rave to. And so, yeah, consequently, the age range was much bigger than we thought, and the night was a much bigger success than we thought it was going to be.
And so, what were the repercussions of that for you then?
So I was resident at that for. I played every gig for the first 3 years, and out of the 5 hours, I played 4. We had a guest PA or 2 and a guest DJ. And off the success of that, that's when I started, literally, my bookings went mental. I was out every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Could be going as far as Swansea.
Thursday was the night you had to go and find a woman, wasn't it? Yeah. A woman's got to be on the scene by now, surely.
Yeah, I'm not on overnights by this point, so I'm actually meeting people, and I'm you know, maybe in a relatively sane state, rather than you know, having too much Red Bull and caffeine and trying to have a party on a Thursday. So yeah, by this point we're kind of, you know, covering most of the UK, mainly like M25 towns, that are sort of your big clubbing towns around the southeast. But you know, by this point, Kiss is on FM in Bristol in the southwest and Cardiff, and it's on the whole east of England. So we've got a much bigger patch that we're hitting, but also there's other areas are going, well, we love that and we'd like that in our club. So, you know, going up to Wakefield's, and you know, right the way across the country, every week. And again, it sounds glamorous, but it gets to a point where it's not so glamorous.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, we launched O Beach and Ibiza. We launched in Marbella. Those gigs are still going. Every Sunday in Marbs, every Tuesday in Ibiza. We did Norwich on Saturday gone, and Bristol's this Saturday, and there's the big festival in London in Blackheath at the end of July. So the festival started off the back of the club night at the O2. Yeah, that's really good fun. 2 or 3 arenas depending on the site, and you know, it's bringing what's brilliant about Kisstory is all the people that were DJing and playing that music and making that music back in the day, like me, still love going out and playing it now. So the vibe's brilliant. You know, it's like a neat play and see 5,000 people singing their tune back at them. It's still the same buzz as it was when they first did it. And I think a lot of the artists that did Kisstory at the O2 for the first time, they'd been playing their tracks, PAing their tracks in your Liquids and whatever all around the UK for years because they were big tunes. But when you stand on that stage at the O2 at Kisstory, it's a room designed for live music, and everybody knows your tune because they've heard it on the radio, and that's why they're there. And so to look out on that crowd singing your music back at you like the first time you did it, I think is an amazing thing to watch. And we've even tracked down some artists that stopped PAing years ago and gone, will you just come and do one more for us and see what you think? And they come and they're pretty glad they did.
I'll tell you what, you've sold it to me. I'm quite envious to listen to that and hear how much you're having a great time and how much you still love it. Has there been any points where you think, if only I could just do X, Y, or Z? Or is it just everything is just smashing it out of the park?
I wish I had more time to make music because that's really time consuming, and it's pretty niche to keep up with it. Keeping up with music technology is like it's a daily thing you need to be doing every day. And when you're doing radio shows and you just don't have the time to do that well, I don't think. So I do make some bits and bobs, but it'd be really good to, have some time to make music. But yeah, it's just one of those choices. Just clarify for me some of the productions that you have done that you're most happiest with. Okay, so I'll tell you the most fun music project I did recently is I wrote all the music for a theme park in Dubai. Okay. So Global Village in Dubai did a big rebrand a few years ago. It was just before COVID. And they came to me and they said, we need someone that can write music for a load of theme park rides. Is it something you'd be up for? I'm quite interested in this, yeah. So we'll send you a video of the ride, and can you then write the track that goes with it? So this is everything from like kiddies roundabouts to like death drop rides. And I wrote 26 pieces of music for all of the rides. And then they uploaded it to the ride, showed me the video, we tweaked it, and we had designed the entire theme park with tunes. So that was really good fun. And that led to writing some stuff for ITV2 and some Channel 4 programs. And that stuff's quite exciting because you're writing to something. It's actually easier than go and write a banger.
So is that classed as a synchronization, or
yeah? So it's like,
wow. So and there's a nice back end off that as well, right?
There's a publishing, obviously, because you write it all. There's no, it's not not sampling, so you kind of own the whole composition. Mm-hmm. I'm not really up on the best ways to exploit that, but yeah, there is a bit of back end, and obviously the more it's repeated, the more it carries on.
Well, when we see your productions on a Coca-Cola advert, then we'll be knocking on your door.
Right,
Borrow a tenner, just. So yeah, I'm happily sitting here to. So does that bring us up to the current day, or are we still a few years ago? I mean, some major section. At some point, children came along. I think I would like to find out about how that all progressed.
Yes. So should we go? But where do you want to go back to in the? Been ranting on about career stuff, and
I think just about because it sounds like you've never taken a chance to breathe, and yet somewhere along the line you've managed to find a partner, settle down, get married, and have wonderful children.
Yeah. As you know, when you're DJing, it can be quite difficult to find someone that accepts that lifestyle because you're traveling a lot, because you're interacting with people more than average. If you're in a club, I've sometimes been nine clubs in a week. You need somebody that is comfortable that you're being professional and you're going to come home. And I'm really lucky. I met that person in 2007. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was obviously you were already in London by then.
Yeah.
And then a family. So what part of London exactly are you?
I'm right on the border of London and Surrey.
Okay.
So near Kingston on Thames.
Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. And so what is an everyday for you now? Because you're still very prolific. You're still on air a hell of a lot. Before we started, I think you gave me the statistics of how many hours a week.
So I'm doing 56 hours a week of radio shows. 7 hours of production mixes on top of that, so it's 14 radio shows and about 7 hours of production mixes. And then the voiceover still for ITV4 and other brands. Mm-hmm. So 2013, I think Kisstory started as its own radio station on DAB. And my show moved from Kiss over to Kisstory. And that's where I still am, doing the Kisstory evening show now. And Saturday Night Kisstory, which is a mixed show, similar vibes to what I was doing at Galaxy, and 2 chill out shows, which are actually on Kiss. So that's kind of like deep house and lots of kind of liquid drum and bass, anything that's calm but electronic and melodic, I guess. And yeah, probably got Pete Gooding to thank for getting me into that kind of Balearic vibe on a trip to Ibiza. I think it was 1997. Still at Choice at the time. So yeah, and got me playing sunsets and understanding that whole opposite energy to dance music.
And making sure you don't get on the mic. Here's the fucking sunset, everyone. Enjoy this.
Yeah, take it down 10 notches, mate.
Yeah, just a little bit. Simon is saying he's never complaining again. Someone who is on the radio a fair bit himself, but he's saying you still look good for it, though.
Thanks, Simon.
Okay, well, it's actually been really interesting for me to sit here and hear all of this, because it's been quite a while since we really spoke. It's been a long time since I ever really stopped to, get the lowdown on what you have been doing. And it sounds like you're having a great time from those early days when I chuckle and I did, say in jest earlier, pestering us to join the dance division. And I think I said when I was promoting this conversation, not necessarily a name that people in the clubbing circuit on the soulful house scene, I'm sure you'll be the first to admit your name isn't necessarily one that you would see on a hell of a lot of flyers. But yeah. I'd definitely say you're probably one of the most successful of all the people that I know out there, mate. It's a credit to you.
Thank you. It's been really good to talk to you.
It's been wonderful. So we can expect to see you out and about, and you still over. So how often do you get to Ibiza yourself?
So I was out last week and the week before. I probably won't be back out there till the end of the summer now. Okay. I'm involved in Tomorrowland in Belgium, and there's 2 big weekends coming up for that at the end of July, where we do all of the live radio from the festival. And I play playing this year on the Terra Solis stage, which is a venue that Tomorrowland are involved in out in Dubai. It's very housey. I think I'm with the likes of DJ Licious and those sorts of DJs. It's a really nice house stage. Mm-hmm. So I'm out for that, and then Ibiza will be back towards the end of the summer. And I'm back in Brum actually. Sold out gig at the Mill. In August.
What's that for?
That is a rooftop party for a promoter that I work for in Birmingham a lot. I say a lot. I do 1 or 2 a year. Feel
free to give it a plug. Feel free to give it a plug.
It's sold out already. So I don't think you can get tickets, but it's at the Mill on I think it's the third week in August. Okay. I'm really looking forward to that because I haven't played a daytime party in Birmingham since I played for you. So that's going to be exciting.
Okay, well, all the Birmingham crew, mate. Well, if they haven't got tickets, they've missed out, mate. We could be we could be talking all night, but I think I need to draw this to a close at some point. So I just say thank you so much. It really has been a pleasure.
Yes, Andy. Yeah, it's been really good catching up.
Wonderful, mate. I'll say a few words to everyone, and don't be so much of a stranger. I'll make sure we keep in touch a lot more.
Excellent, good stuff. Cheers Andy. Dude.
All the best. Take care. And there goes Justin. Really, really enjoyed that conversation. As you will have seen, we go back a hell of a long way. And Simon says in the chat, feel very proud of you, bro. He's definitely achieved some big things. And Simon, just goes to show you'll be doing the same thing yourself. I can feel it in my water. Okay, the conversations are flowing thick and fast. I'm going to be with you again on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Someone I also used to rave with in the early days. So we're going back 25. Yeah, actually, what am I talking about? We're going back further. I won't get lost in that. We're talking about music therapy and a hell of a lot more. If you can't make it on Thursday, check out the wall for the full details on that one. Thank you to everyone that's been with me live. Thank you to everyone that has watched the recording. As always, if you have subscribed, then your name will be shown here on the screen. All my excess crew are scrolling up on the right-hand side. These people subscribe to me on a monthly basis. Thank you so much. And if you need any graphics, any website work, or anything else video related, then I am your man. Thank you. See you later.